am John Ryan, and this is the NBA Triple Double Show for Monday, April the 25th. And I'm joined with my regular co host, friend, and professional sports bettor, Ronald Cabang, in the house here. And we have three games to break down tonight. There's three games on the card, so we're going to do them all. Ronald, my win streak came to an end. We had two losses over the weekend. One was Golden State, but we're going to look to bounce back. You know, these things do happen.
Yeah,
How are things for you?
going well. I took a loss yesterday. Obviously, the playoffs are such a different. It's a different beast.
Yep.
The officiating has been very crucial in some of the games, especially the last few games. So we'll see how it goes.
Atrocious.
Yeah, there's such a huge discrepancy between like two teams. The free throw attempts and the fouls being called. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, hopefully they just they become more consistent as the playoffs roll along, and we can make better decisions.
Yeah, that's all you can do. I don't think it's caused me to lose anything against the spread or win against the spread that I can really pinpoint, but I can't remember a time where there's been so many flops being called, like almost for, being reviewed for flagrants. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
But anyway, the news of the day is that Ben Simmons is not playing for the Nets, and at this point, why bother? Because there's really nothing to gain with that, and I think Boston takes care of it tonight. I don't see any. The body language of the Nets, especially KD and
Mhm.
Kyrie, I thought was pretty bad in the second half. The body language looked like they were beat. So we have game four tonight, and no NBA team has ever come back from 3-0, and I hardly
Hmm.
think this Nets team is capable of even getting to game five. So what do you see in this game, Ronald?
Yeah, I'm actually on the opposite side here. I know, obviously the Celtics have completely owned the Nets this season, including the regular season. The Celtics are now 6-1 straight up, and 4-2-1 against the spread versus the Nets. Their games have also gone 5-2 to the over. The Nets actually had a couple of chances to steal games in Boston when Robert Williams was out. They were close, but they just couldn't close out the games. And then now Williams is back in the second game, and the top defensive team in the league is pretty much at full strength. So I could see where you're coming from as far as it's going to be tough for the Nets to get the win here and avoid the sweep. But I mean, this is obviously a must-win situation here for the Nets, and it's interesting because the Nets are favored in this one. And a lot of people, I was on Twitter earlier, and a lot of people have mentioned Scott Foster officiating this game as well. So there's some things here that's kind of like questioning, why are the Nets here favored here after going 0-3 the first three games of the series, and they look to be defeated, but. I feel like the books are telling us a little bit of something. Historically, I looked into the SDQL database and I looked up how 3-0 teams do as road dogs in game four of a series, and it's an extremely small sample size here, but those teams are 0-2 straight up and against the spread. Interesting enough, and the last instance was the Celtics versus Philly. Philly ended up winning that game in game five. I think there were 7-point favorites. They ended up winning by 9. To me here, I know. I mean, I know last game was a must-win here for the Nets too, but I'm gonna lean towards the Nets here in game four. I think they avoid the sweep here. Last game was obviously a must-win, 3-0 series. Nets look completely overmatched, but the line here is I feel like it's just telling us a story that the Nets will avoid the sweep tonight.
Yeah, and I did some research on the database too, and teams that are up 3 games to none in a 7 game series have gone 50 and 23 straight up, 41, 29, and 3 against the spread for 59% winners over the last 20 playoff seasons. And then I broke it out by conference, and we see that the Eastern Conference teams with a 3-0 lead, which is exactly what Boston has, are
Mhm.
29-10 straight up and 23, 14, and 2 against the spread for 62%. And if they're on the road for game four, they've seen the last 20 seasons. Granted, most of these wins are past 10 years ago, but they went 24 and 8, 18, 12, and 2 against the number for 60%. So
Some good numbers there.
yeah, so it's a mixed picture, and it's a type of game that don't particularly like personally because
Yeah,
I think the Nets are just such a. I guess if they win tonight, it's pride. You know, I don't
yeah.
think they're going to win at TD Arena in their
Hmm.
next game for sure. But they very disappointing. That's to say
Yeah,
the least. I thought this would be a competitive series, and it really hasn't.
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to our next game here. And that is going to be the 76ers. And, I do have clothing representing just about every franchise there is. But we have the Raptors here. And, of course, teams that are up 3-0, we just talked about. But what people do talk about is the teams that are up 3-0, and then all of a sudden it's 3-1. And you're, on the road if you're that team that has the one win now. And, boy, if we just win that game, it'll be wow. We go back to Toronto. We win
Yep,
that game. We go back to Philly for Game 7.
yep.
I mean I appreciate that every year we go through that conversation, but I really don't think Philly's going to screw this up tonight. I think as wide a margin there is with the Nets and the Celtics, I think the margin here is not quite as wide, but I think the Sixers are that much better. And Matisse is playing tonight.
Hmm.
He didn't play in Toronto, and that's a big player defensively. And he's been draining some threes too occasionally. The total here, I'm interested to see what you think of that because that looks extraordinarily low. But all my analytics and my models point to leaning at least to the under, despite it being
Hmm.
so low. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the key things here on the Raptors side is Van Vliet. Obviously he's going to be out today. But they, during the regular season, the Sixers beat the Raptors beat the Sixers without Van Vliet and Anunoby in the game twice in the regular season. So it's not like it can't be done without them. On the Sixers side, it's Embiid playing with the torn thumb ligament. That's just a tough break for the Sixers to not have him at full strength. To me, it did look like it bothered him in the previous game, but obviously he's going to tough it out, is what it sounds like, and we'll see how it goes moving forward. But I think this is really going to be a slow-paced defensive game on both sides of the ball. Both teams are playing with an extremely slow pace. Now both offenses are being affected by key players. Van Vliet on the Raptors side and Embiid on the Sixers side. And then the total has decreased for the fourth straight game in the series uh, after game one. And then especially now with Toronto going from Toronto to Philly, where Matisse can play again, like you mentioned, I do still lean towards the under. I think it's moving down every game for a reason. I think the Raptors here on the spread side, I think the Raptors' length is going to be a problem. If we look at game by game margin too, Raptors lost by 20 in game one, then 15, then by 3, and the last game they won by 8 outright. So it just seems like the Raptors are gaining a little bit of momentum here as the series keeps going. To me, most signs right now are pointing towards the Raptors at least covering the spread, if not winning it outright. So that's the way that I'm looking here, is just lean towards the Raptors to cover and towards the under.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. There's a highly profitable betting system here. This has gone 79, 47, and 2 under the posted total at 63% over the last 20 playoff seasons. So the requirements are to bet under in a game with a total of at least 200 points. And we are, I mean, by modern standards, we are barely over 200, but we are. And with a team in the current series coming off an upset road loss installed as a favorite, which the Sixers were, and has won at least 60% of their games in the season, facing an opponent that has not won 60% or more of their games in the season. And so far this playoff season, Ronald, it's 7-3 to the under for 70% winning bets. And it has had just one losing season among the last 20. So maybe I'm leaning a little bit more to the under after knowing that little analytical anecdote.
Hmm.
Yeah, let's move on to the third game before we do our final bets here. And the
Yeah.
third game is a big one. And this might be the best matchup of the night, actually. Utah Jazz on the road against the Dallas Mavericks. They're both playing with 1 day of rest, is what I remember, which is a little unusual, but not that big a deal. This total is also lower, too. I think, to your point earlier, this total has steadily come down through the series. and now we're
Hmm.
at 212.5. And I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to 210, 209.5 by game time. It seems to be gathering momentum to the downside. Um, what do you see in this matchup for a betting opportunity?
Yeah, this one, like you mentioned, is probably the best game of the slate today. But it's also, to me, the toughest one. I think the obvious looks here are towards the Mavs and the under, right? Mavs at home. Luka's back, but the return of Luka really, I feel like it kind of messed up the team chemistry last game, especially in the first half.
Yep.
Brunson looked off in that first half, and then they came out in sync, more in sync in the second half. But the Jazz, I feel like you know, I feel like after that game, they picked up a little bit of momentum of their own. People were always talking about Mitchell and Gobert and how they disliked each other all season long, and it showed kind of in the first few games of the series too. But what happens when the game is on the line? You get a lob from Mitchell to Gobert. That to me, that kind of shows a little bit of something that maybe they can even if they don't like each other, they can play together. That's probably that's maybe one play that can kind of push them over and get them clicking as far as being a team. But as far as trend wise, a lot of the trends that I'm seeing right now are pointing towards the Mavs. um, you know 17-3 straight up, 12-7 against the spread to the as home favorites in conference games. And if you add that their opponent has a winning record, they're 7-0 straight up and 7-0 against the spread as home favorites in conference games against teams with a winning record. Some more stats going from road to home: 14-3 straight up, 12-5 against the spread. Following a previous matchup loss in revenge games, they've been strong in these spots all season long. 17-5 straight up, 18-4 against the spread. And then after scoring less than 100, they come back and they put in the offensive display that to improve. They make the necessary adjustments. The coaching staff do a really good job after they struggle scoring. 16-4 straight up, 17-3 against the spread. So trend wise, everything's pointing towards the Mavs. The what really has me kind of stuck here is just the play of Mitchell and Gobert in that last game. For some reason, it's just clicking to me that maybe this is a moment where they're just like, all right, let's put this all aside. Let's play together as a team. Put all the personal stuff aside. And so I don't know. There's a lot of things to think about when you're capping a game, especially when it comes to the
Sure
playoffs.
is.
So yeah. So to me, I still lean towards the Mavs and the under. I feel like the under is more of a solid look than the Mavs against the spread here. Yeah, that's the way that I'll look. What are you thinking about in this game?
I'm leaning the under here too. And sometimes I feel like I'm leaning under like all the time this playoffs, but that's done pretty well. And traditionally, that's what professional bettors like us do, especially in March Madness, where the first two rounds the unders are almost golden over the last
Mm.
many years. But anyway, in this matchup, we have this is a long term system, regular season and playoffs included. It has gone over the last 25 NBA seasons, 541, 390. That's 59% winners over that long a period. And if I add that up quickly, that's basically close to 920 picks. That's a big sample size to have gone 59%. So we're going to play under with road teams where the total is greater than or equal to 200. Team
Mhm.
is having lost two of the last three games. That's Utah, and with a winning record on the season, playing another winning record team. And again, that has done pretty darn well consistently over many seasons. Now for the fun part, Ronald. Now we have our best bets. So, boy oh boy, I maybe it's meant to be that I have a Sixers jacket on today. So
Mhm.
I do. I'm not making this up. I mean, I really do like the Sixers tonight, and
Mhm.
I think they get it done. I'm gonna, preface it with my in-game betting strategy. We're gonna go 50% pre-flop here at -8, and if you get 7.5, obviously get that. But it's probably gonna go to 8.5 by game time. I think maybe higher. If you like the
Mhm.
Sixers like I do, I would do 50% pre-flop now because it does seem to be a little high and it's inflated because Van Leet is not in the game, as you said.
Mhm.
And this could easily turn into a 25-point rout by the Sixers. But then in game, you got to expect that Toronto's going to come out firing, and they're going
Hmm.
to want to be competitive right from the start. And during the first half only, look for the Sixers at -3.5. So you're going to do it at -8 for 50%, and then 50% more at -3.5. And I'm willing to bet, obviously, that they cover at least the 3.5, if not the whole ball of wax.
Hmm.
So that's my best bet for this show. What is yours, Ronald?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at that same game. I think the under is the play there. I think both offenses being affected by Van Vliet and Embiid not being full strength. I think that's gonna affect their offenses, and they're just gonna continue playing that slow pace that they have been playing the whole series. And then Matisse coming back into the fold as well, being at home. That's gonna limit the wing players of the Raptors here. So to me, I like the under. Toronto, Philly. I think right now you can get it at two under 211.5. So it's gone up a little bit.
Yep.
So we're getting a little bit of value from the opening line.
And just adding on to that, the in-game strategy, I think for both games, the Dallas Utah game and Philly and Toronto, if you see it at 222 or higher in-game, I think that is an easy pizza money bet to make to the under. So
Hmm.
222 on either game or higher. And when I say pizza money, for those that are watching for the first time, it's what it is. It's like, $10, 15, $20. It's not going to kill you if it loses. And these strategies have worked well this playoff season. I have to admit, I've been playing around with it, and it's been a lot of fun, mainly because they've been winning.
Hmm.
So now instead of getting just a pizza, I'm able to afford pepperoni on the pizza, and that's pretty good.
With the stuffed crust.
That's it. Yep, that's it. All right. So Ronald, thanks for your time here. We're going to be back tomorrow with another edition of the NBA Triple Double Show. And as always, make sure you get over to Sports Memo and get our picks. Both Ronald and I are running pretty darn well right now. I am coming off a disappointing 5% loss. I like being transparent with these things. Now 7-1 against the number on the season with 5% max bets and hitting 68% over my last 63 NBA games. And that's, excuse me, that's really what matters. Losses are going to happen, and it is what it is, and it's you got to bounce back the next day.
Yep.
So until tomorrow, remember two things: bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins continue to be yours.